occultists are Satanists. That's the first point. And there's references for that. That comes from Satanism Today, an encyclopedia of religion, folklore, and popular culture. Though some are, right? There are some Satanist branches. For example, the occultists of it's known as the Temple of Set. Temple of Set. Right? Occultists from the Temple of Set consider themselves, according to my research, I haven't talked to them, but I have researched this pretty extensively, and they consider themselves, and if you are a Temple of Set occultist and I've gotten this wrong, then correct me, but occultists, for example, from the Temple of Set, consider themselves left-hand path occultists, but they don't consider themselves to be Satanists, right? So that they do believe, my understanding is, and I gave the citation for that, right? Well, I gave the website, but I should have, I can find the book. I have to find the book again because I want to give the book reference to that too. And I will make sure, let me put a note to myself, reference. I'll put the reference on. That way it's not my fault, it's whoever wrote, the author that said this. But there's textual citation for that, right? So not all LHP occultists, left-hand path occultists, are Satanists, devil worshippers. Some are, though some are. The example is occultists of the Temple of Set are LHP occultists, but they are not Satanists. And I'll make sure to put the reference for that before I upload this. So the next thing to recognize, so now we understand, we assume the point that they both shared, that both right-hand path, white light occultists, and left-hand path occultists shared, which was that there's been this knowledge, and this knowledge has been lost, right? And there's an attempt to try and regain this knowledge. So they believe, again, the same point, that knowledge has been lost, right? They believe that knowledge has been lost as a byproduct of human evolution and scientific skepticism, blah, blah, blah. We said that before, same thing with RHP occultists, but this is where it's different. Their approach to it is different. Remember, Anakin, instead of recognizing that his attachment to Padme would prevent him from reaching enlightenment, forgot the path of the Jedi and chose the path of the Sith by embracing attachments, by perverting the natural laws to try to ensure that she would live beyond what was, death is inherent. And it's not to say that LHP don't recognize that death is inherent. They do. We'll see in a little bit how they address this. So here's what's uniquely left-hand. LHP only. Right, so left-hand path occultists only. This knowledge is only accessible. Right? Remember, we're trying to access it, just like the right-hand path occultists are trying to access it. Left-hand path occultists are trying to access that knowledge, but the only way to access this knowledge is through sexual and carnal indulgences and embracing the inherent death within us all. So rather than foregoing attachments, right, the LHP occultists embrace attachments, right? So they embrace physical, sexual, etc. attachments. Right? So if we look at Kaivalya as the one, and we have another polemic extreme, the one, here, and we have the individual, this way, because you're looking at it, right, the right-hand path is severing attachments to arrive at the one, knowledge of the one, right? Left-hand path occultists are not going the right way, they're the quote-unquote the right way. They are gaining or adding attachments. I think the more attachments, and I'll explain this in a second, the more attachments you have, the more connected to the vile, visceral, baseline reality of our real human existence, not this cookie cutter, you know, I'm wearing a tie and a shirt, but underneath this I'm covered in tattoos and I'm ready to do something bad, like that part of me, right? That part of you, right? And there's that part in all of us, right? I'll get to that in the end. You don't have to be an occultist, right? And I'm not trying to say that, right? But what I am saying is that we all have that part of us that inherently just wants to see something die, right? Maybe not that bad, someone said something bad to you, and you know, if you're really good, if you're a goody two-shoes, then maybe it's like, oh, you know, he said something bad to me, or she said something bad to me, and you know, I wish you would just feel sad or sick. You know, you're wishing in a sense malice on someone, or it might go crazy, and you're just like, yo, I want somebody to kill this dude, right? Both the same. Now, take that idea on an individual level and multiply it to a national level, right? Like national occultism, right? On a steroid level. You know, this is pretty insane stuff. So it's important to recognize that all we're really saying is those who choose the left-hand path want to have attachments, and it's, you know, I gotta be careful about how I say this. You know, I don't want to say that it's not a bad thing. I'm not here to make moral judgments. I'm really not. I'm not. You know, and I don't know if I'm gonna catch flack for that in the afterlife, if there is, you know, in the afterlife. But, you know, in a sense, it's not a bad thing to want to have stuff, right? I do love my wife. I love my kids. You know, I love my house. I don't love my house, but you know, my house is comfortable. I need my car. I need to wear these clothes, right? As we've seen, right? I've done a lecture where I didn't even do a lecture. I did a video. Shout out to 2010. I never had beef with 2010. Everybody jumped on his back, but I did a video where I was in a wife beater. 2010 was like, oh, you know, but you know, it was good because I wanted that response. And then, you know, I don't know him or her, but well, 2 man. But then it was like a mutual recognition that I was, you know, I'm a step ahead of the ball. But yes, seeing me for who I am, really, right? Because underneath this is covered in tats, right? And you would probably be intimidated. Not some of you thugs that watch me, but regular white mainstream America, you'd be intimidated, right? But so I have to, you know, I put on the pink and I'll loosen up the collar a little bit, you know, let the wild side out, I guess. But you recognize that attachment. I do want to belong to this world. I like the taste of good food and a rich wine and a good chocolate. I like having sex. I like orgasming. I like pleasing other people. I like doing this for you. I'm attached to you, and I don't even know who the hell you are. And in a sense, you're attached to me, and you don't know who I am because you don't know what's under here, right? So it's like, so yeah, I mean, there is a sense in which attachment isn't bad. There isn't a sense. There's a sense in which aestheticism isn't bad. You know, I've had enough wine. I've had enough X, Y, Z. But the point of the lecture is to give you the polemics, the extremes. Right? I am going to indulge until the point that I'm going to drink wine until like leaving Arizona. Genius, right? It has nothing to do with the occult, but good example. I'm going to get a prostitute. We're going to a hotel, and I'm going to drink myself this weekend to death. Not by accident. I am willfully, intentionally going to drink myself to death, and I'm going to go out with a bang and leave a beautiful corpse. Right? Pretty hardcore. Pretty hardcore. That's really going in. Other extreme. I'm totally going to abstain from sex forever. Okay? One level of sort of withdrawal. Not only I'm going to abstain from, I recognize that me walking is possibly killing, like in some forms of Jainism, me walking is possibly killing, you know, animals there, so I'm going to try and remain as immobilized as possible for as long as possible. Okay? That's once, so much so that I'm going to starve myself to death for the sheer determination of that I have the aestheticism within me that I am going to refuse to eat, period. Not because of, like, sort of, you hear this a lot with refusal to eat with respect to prison populations, but a willful refusal to eat in an attempt to attain enlightenment, to really detach myself from myself through the act of death, by bringing the internal death out externally, right? I mean, so you can see they're both really, really extremes, right? They're both two extremes, left-hand path, right-hand path. Again, I'm just trying to do justice to the discussion of an occultism so that it's not all of this, you know, YouTube blah, 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 babble foolishness, right? There's something of substance on the internet. Alright, so now to really talk about it. So scholar Hugh Urban, in a discussion of Vamachara, the left-hand path, says, and Tantra, I'm not going to get into sort of tantric cult